Hello everyone. Welcome to ArtTown podcast series or ATPS as we like to call it. Every week on Friday we feature art and design professionals who take us through their journey in this fascinating world of art. Make sure you follow us on Instagram, Facebook and Spotify, and with that let's continue with the show and dive deep into the ocean of art. Do you want to know what it takes to design automobiles? If yes, get excited because our today's conversation will definitely give you a brief about it. Today we have with us an automobile designer, Robert Bauer. Working in automobile design since 1995, his experience is unmatchable. One would often find him scribbling figure sketches in his sketchbook. So let's dive into our conversation and get enriched with a little more knowledge about art and its applications. Hello, sir. It's our pleasure to have you today. Before we dive into our actual questions, I just want to ask you how are you and how are you coping with the pandemic and how is the pandemic situation in America?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on your podcast. This is an honor, honestly. Um, yeah, it really hasn't changed so much. Our lives or how we work, I think we're much closer together now with family. But as far as the actual work goes, I've been working um, kind of remotely with the technology that we have for quite some time now, even before this pandemic. So, in a strange way, kind of an ironic way, I feel like I see more of friends and family and coworkers using uh, Zoom and other online meeting services. So it's kind of funny in a way, like we kind of feel like we're a little locked down or isolated, but I feel like we're actually seeing each other a lot more because of
Yeah.
this.
And thanks for your humble words, sir, because it's our honor to have you with us. So,
Thank you.
I just want to ask you next, how did you get drawn towards the art field in the first place? Like, when was the first time you realized that you want to go ahead in this field professionally in the design and art field?
Well, it's one of those things. I think when you talk to most artists, and I listened to some of your podcasts on your show, listening to other artists, it's just one of those things that you start, when you're a child. It's just something that's in you to draw and create and to make things. We're fascinated by Play-Doh and Legos, and we're always making things and drawing things. So it's always been who I am, and it's always been encouraged by my teachers growing up and my parents. My mom, especially, my mother was a very good um, artist, and so yeah, it's just kind of who I am. How I got into the profession that I do now, I'm a automotive designer. Um, it's kind of a funny story because in high school, when you're getting closer to graduation, you're thinking about college, and you're seeing your friends, or even maybe some of your siblings, going off to college, and you're thinking, well, what am I going to do? What am I going to do for work? Because you have a passion, but you also know that you should be making some sort of an income. And so I was thinking about that a lot in my last few years in high school, and uh, knowing that I like drawing, it was like, how can I put those two things together? How can I be an artist? How can I be creative and then also have a decent income? And honestly, when I started looking into schools, I was looking at art schools, and I was seriously thinking about being an illustrator or studying illustration. And I went to what we do in the U.S., which is really cool. They'll do these like university fairs or college fairs, and so one college will host it and then other universities would join, and you can visit many different universities in one location. And so this university fair was hosted at the Ringling Institute of Art. I'm sure maybe a lot of your listeners are familiar with the school. It's one of the top art schools in the U.S. It's located in Florida. That's where I grew up in Florida. And so I went to Ringling, and I went to their university fair. And there was another school that was there, and that was the Art Center College of Design, and that is one of the top design schools. It's located in Pasadena, California, near Los Angeles. And so I met with them also, and that's when I discovered automotive design. I thought, wow, you know, you can get a job doing that, drawing cars. So that's kind of how it started for me. And I applied to Art Center, and then went from there, and have been doing automotive design been involved with it, including school, for almost 30 years now.
Wow, 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 great. So, like before 30 years, when you were in school to learn art and design, so how was your experience back then? And what, according to you, one should keep in mind while studying or while going through the learning process?
My experience at school, that's probably the best 4 years of my life so far. I mean, it was really an awesome experience. I had the support of my parents, which was great, and so I had their encouragement, and it was really the first time in my life. Up until then, I started design school when I was 19 and then turning 20. Um, that I was at a place with a bunch of people all with the same mindset. And it's not just automotive design, but you're at school with illustrators, fine artists, graphic designers.
Mhm.
Uh, they even had entertainment design. It's basically all the visually creative fields, and we're all together. And to just be in a place at a university with your peers, all with the same kind of mindset. It was just really, really exciting, really invigorating, and it motivated me a lot. And yeah, so that's the really cool mindset, because I think, when you're an artist or you're creative and you're growing up, you're a child, and you're in your hometown, or even going to school and high school and stuff, you feel like a bit of an outcast, not in a bad way, but like that you're slightly different. And I guess this is the same if you're a musician or any kind of like creative type work, and you're not really in the cliques or the clubs or anything. And there's might be a few of you that are kind of you know artists together and stuff, but when you go out on your own and you go to university and you see a school with, thousands of students all with the same kind of mindset, it's like, oh wow, there are there are other people like me, and there's a place for people like us. It was really cool. It was really exciting time for me. And also too, the school art center, they're very well networked. So their connection with the professional industry is just fantastic. So from very early on, you're already kind of networking or getting exposure with the industries or the companies that are in your studies. So
Mhm.
it was a really great experience for me.
Yeah, great to know that. Great to know that. That was pretty insightful as well. So, in your journey uh, of becoming an automotive designer, you told me before that you considered automotive designing because of the monetary reasons, right? But there are many other.
Yes, I don't know which one was first, if it was the passion or the monetary reasons, but yeah, it's when you're younger and you draw, it's like, well, what can I do? How can I support myself with drawing?
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, it just kind of worked out with automotive design.
So I was just wondering that there are many other art fields, art and design sectors which provide monetary stability, like architecture and interior
Yeah,
design. Some
yeah.
are few of them, right? So what was so special in automotive designing that you pursue that only?
Well, it's just just kind of like a boyhood kind of passion. You grow up. I always grew up, fascinated by cars. I was the town that I grew up in. I kind of traveled around a lot when I was little. But the town that I grew up in was kind of a small town in Florida, and like most small towns in the U.S., it's basically just you have the big three, what we call the big three in the industry. So that's Ford, GM, and Chrysler products, which are cool. But when I was a child, when I was born in California, and my father bought a BMW, and which I still have. Actually, it's pretty cool. So we've kept it in the family, and so growing up in the small town in Florida, we had this little German car, and it was quite different. And so I've always been fascinated by vehicles and cars that weren't kind of the the kind of the general kind of basic mainstream like vehicles that you see. So I was always interested in kind of the different, unique kind of, to me, those vehicles really interested me. So I think it was like the perfect combination of all of those things, because you can have a very good career in automotive design. So it's very corporate on one hand, and then it's also very uh, clean slate, clean blank sheet of paper, super creative on the other hand. So it's a combination of those two things that I loved, and always drawing. Yeah, it's like the perfect combination of all those things for me.
Yeah, yeah, can imagine that. The memories and the connection towards automobile made you inclined towards it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So, your social media as well, like tells you that you love figure drawing a lot, and you have been doing it in different art galleries and art clubs as well. So, how was your experience there? Any memorable incident that you want to share with us that
Well,
happened in
I,
those
I
galleries?
I think for your audience, I think everybody is kind of right now. They're thinking, "Oh yeah, figure drawing," because I think for most artists, it's considered the most challenging thing to do and do well. And I don't think we feel like we ever do it well, even with our best figure sketch. We're like, but it could always be better. So yeah, I do that just because it's the challenge of it, I think is really cool. And usually when I do figure drawing, I'm just doing ballpoint pen in my sketchbook. And I've attended some pretty cool locations. The whole scene for me is really neat. The venue and the places that you go to. My wife is French, and we go to Paris quite often. And uh, I'm not going to say this correctly. I never do say it correctly, but there's a very old studio in Montparnasse called Le Grand Chenier, and it's such a cool setting, and they have great models there. And so whenever we go to Paris, I go to Le Grand Chenier and and sketch. And it's nice to just sit there because all the furniture is this old wood, and you get to find your little spot there near the stage, and you have your supplies and everything. And they have very beautiful lighting. It's north lighting, so it's indirect lighting, so the light in the room is really nice. And you can have your coffee and just sit there and hang out all day and do figure drawing, and develop your skills. And also too, what's really cool is just like art school, is you're in there with people of like minds and like interests of all nationalities, of all races. It is so cool. And just be, it's very, there's a meditative quality about doing figure drawing too, because it's very still, it's very quiet in the room, and there's short sessions. There's it could be like 1 minute poses to 5 minute. There's even 20-minute poses. They'll usually take a break in between. If the model's very good, they assume the same position um, all the way through. They hold the pose all the way through. But yeah, it's really cool. The only thing I have really on social media is my Instagram, which is Bauer Draws, and on that you can see. So it's a Bauer Draws um, on Instagram, and some of my pages in there. You can see some of the figure drawings, which why I'm fascinated by figure drawing. I mentioned that my mother is a very good artist, and I remember growing up, she had which I still have this book. It's a book by from Andrew Loomis, and Andrew Loomis was a fantastic illustrator in the 30s and 40s in the U.S., and he published a bunch of books. You can just look them up on eBay, and they're fantastic illustration books about figure drawing. And if any of your listeners want to get those, I think some of them are printed online, but the quality just isn't there. You don't see the value, the tone, or the shading. And if they can, I encourage them to find first edition, second edition prints of these books. There's still a lot out there, and to get those, because the instruction is fantastic, the illustrations are fantastic, and I think if you can master figure drawing, then you can basically draw anything.
Okay. I hope the listeners figure that out and do check out those books online. And the process that you just described, it sounded very, very relaxing. The whole places that you go and just sketch, that sounds very relaxing.
Yeah, it
So,
is. It's cool. I always look forward to that. The
yeah.
figure drawing sessions. Yeah.
So, be it designing for professional work or be it the figure designing that you do just to relax yourself, what changes has art made in your personality or in your personal life?
Wow. That's a that's a big question. I think one of the, if I could say it like one of the cool things about being an artist is that no matter where you are or what you're doing, you can always be. Well, let me rephrase that to be an illustrator, because there's artists of different types, but just to be good at drawing or good at illustrating, you don't need a drum set to perform. You don't need a lot of things to perform. All you need is just something to write with in a piece of paper, and you can draw and sketch. So you're always with yourself. You're always with your talent, and I feel that when you're, I guess, with any talent, when you're really good at any talent, if you're a good singer, dancer, musician, you can be a good writer or speaker. It gives you a certain kind of confidence that no matter where you are or what the situation is, there's there's a humanity to it without getting too esoteric or abstract. There's a connection, and when you illustrate or draw, or you show your talent to other people, there's a connection there. There's People are fascinated or interested or intrigued. Or one of the things I loved growing up, I said that ever since I was a kid, I was drawing. I was always entering my little drawings and sketches into art contests. And quite honestly, I mean, this is like since the first grade, second grade, third grade, fourth grade. Um, I would always win drawing contests. Always, I would always be like a first place ribbon, or second place ribbon. And this is like, for the school, for the county, for the state art shows, nationwide art competitions, stuff like that for my age group. But the thing that intrigued me the most is I always loved when I could go to the competition, of course, at that age with my parents, and I would love just standing at the wall where my work was, just to hear other people's comments. I wasn't so concerned about like, oh, did I get first place, second place, third place? But I would just love to just, and I remember as a child doing this, going into the display area and just listening to people's reactions. And honestly, I mean, sometimes, it wasn't always positive, but so for me, drawing or being an artist is that kind of that human connection. Like, how are you, you know, speaking to people or entertaining people or provoking people, like through what you create. And I think that's, for me, just through drawing, that's the aspect of it that I like the most.
That was a very beautiful answer, and what all you said is so true. So, speaking about being around art all the time, so how do you motivate yourself to keep on doing something new and better in your field and just outdoing
Hmm.
yourself?
That's really that's that's a really good question. Yeah, how do you keep pushing? I think, honestly, I think some of the best art or some of the most creative work comes out of feeling in the corporate environment. It's not just yourself. So it's it's corporate creativity, right? It's a collaborative type creativity. And I'm sure your listeners probably listen to other podcasts and hear, entertainers, actors, musicians, movie producers talking about this. That when you're trying to do something really unique, really special, that's your vision through a corporation. It could be quite challenging. So for me, professionally, just that challenge is enough, of a challenge. Um, personally, I draw, pardon the pun, I draw a lot of inspiration from looking at other people's work, honestly. And you can get a sense too of when people are pushing something new. You see something that really resonates with you, um, that you've never even seen before. It's that new and it's that fresh that it makes a connection with you. I
No, it was
brought
very
that out.
helpful and it was very insightful as well, and it motivated me. So, um, I just wanted to ask you one thing. Since you're working in design field since like 30 years, 3 decades, which is a very long time. So,
Yes,
like,
I
what
know.
changes? Yeah, yeah. So, what changes have you seen in the automotive design sector from the time you started till now?
um, I've seen a lot of I've seen a lot of good, and I've seen a lot of things that I think have kind of hurt creativity in automotive design. I think it's such a massively competitive industry. It's such a capex or a capital expenditure heavy endeavor to produce a durable good like an
Mm.
automobile. I mean, it's colossal, the amount of resources and man hours that, not only in designing it, but all the R&D, all the engineering research, all the marketing, all the planning, and all the plants, all the infrastructure and supply lines to get a vehicle out on the road. Um, it, it's not an industry that lends itself to pure artistic expression, and that's the greatest thing that kind of, I see, and I don't know if that could ever be in the automotive design profession.
Yeah.
The business was 19. 93, and that was an internship at Ford Motor Company. So that was the first time I went into a car design studio. And I know your listeners are thinking, "Oh, that was before I was born." I was teaching a design class actually at Art Center, and I was going through my portfolio, and there were some sketches in there that were from 1993. And this young lady, she said, "Oh, that's when I was born." And I was like, "Oh, that's great." Thank you, thank you for that. Um, but so yeah, that in '93, I had an internship at Ford Motor Company, and so what's interesting in my career, what I've seen is this. I've seen the tail end of like kind of traditional automotive design, which was just raw sketching on
Yeah.
vellum. Like you were making original artwork. You weren't you weren't doing it in the tube with control Z and saving out your sketches. Like you were making original pieces of art, and which was how automotive design was done since its inception. And we were making full size what were called tape drawings. So you get a layout drawing from engineering, say the side view of the vehicle, and it's a full size drawing. So it's the actual size of the vehicle. And then with black tape, different thicknesses of black tape, you would draw out your design over that drawing, and then the modelers could take dimensions off of that. So that was very analog and very hands-on, and you're on your feet, you're moving around, and it was very physical. And I've seen that when I started out all the way to today, where designers they're sitting in a dark corner of the studio in front of their Wacom tablet, with their Photoshop software, and they've got their headphones on, and they're just kind of in their own little world in the studio, just cranking out sketches in the tube. And then what's even funnier is a lot of the times we don't even print our sketches anymore. We'll post them on we have large monitors in the studio, and or you send them globally, all over the world to different studios to get feedback from design leadership and to get design direction. So I've seen that whole transition, even to the point now where we even question the value of making full size models. Um, in other words, everything is going digital. So we're not only are we sketching in the tube, but we're also building the model, the three-dimensional property in the tube, and evaluating it through virtual reality. So it's gone from like full analog to like what I've seen in the 30 years, full analog to full digital. That's
Yeah.
pretty wild.
Now that you have seen the industry grow and change, and you must be knowing the pace with which the industry is changing. So, what do you think, and what do you expect uh, to happen? Like, what do you expect uh, the future of design to be? What do you think? What kind of changes will take place in near future, or maybe in a decade?
That's a great it's a great question. I hope through technology that we're actually able to do more unique and creative designs. Speaking specifically about automotive design, the we always talk about, oh, technology is accelerating the pace, and things are going so much faster. But honestly, for as long as I've been doing this and seeing, probably hundreds of projects now, not to mention, projects that I've done myself. You really don't need that much time to come up with something really, really cool. The speed of creativity is incredibly fast. It's as fast as you could think. And I think what it is really is that technology is finally catching up to how fast, you know creative people and artists can imagine. It's
Yeah.
technology's caught up to our imagination, honestly, and hopefully facilitates um, a marketplace that is more accepting of products that are really, really unique and expressive and more kind of stand out. I think people don't want to be in an autonomous box. People, they still want something intriguing, compelling, exciting, dynamic, and so I hope that's where the industry goes in the future.
Yeah. Yeah. We never know what the future has to offer us, and it is pretty intriguing to just imagine what might come in our way, right? That was a very different perspective to this whole situation, I must say.
Thanks.
Yeah. So, one thing I feel that our listeners would like to know is how exactly what all parameters do you consider while designing automobile?
Well, I think, ultimately first you think about customer. In other words, who is the end user for this vehicle, and what's the vehicle for? Who is the person? Who's your target? I wouldn't say target. I mean, it just sounds like you're going out just trying to like sell vehicles, but you want to produce a product that has appeal, that people are attracted to, and that people aspire to or gravitate towards. So I think that's the first thing you look at, because there's all sorts of different types of vehicles, right? I mean, you can have compacts, you got full size trucks, you can have SUVs, compact SUVs, minivans, sports cars, everything. And each one of those vehicle types has a different customer set. So I think that's the first thing we look at. Um, who will be using this vehicle, and to get to know them. And we literally actually do that. I mean, we have respondents or target customers and people that we actually interview and we interact with, and maybe we do a day in the life of, so we get to know their habits, and they're representative of a larger um, uh, group. And from that, we can get some really insightful, hopefully useful and helpful information for them, so we can produce a vehicle that meets their everyday lives, wants, and needs. So there's an aspect of that, which is a lot of planning. There's the timing itself. So for the company, it's, the designer asks, what do you need and when do you need it? And then there's also there's budget constraints, of course, which
Yeah.
determine a lot of what we can and can't do. Because I think, um, well, I know that a lot of ideas, and even down to, how the sheet metal is formed, has costs, and costs are reality. So um, there's all those aspects, and then finally there's just the designer's own inspiration of what they feel is cool, and what they feel is modern and new, and yeah. And after doing it for 30 years, it just kind of comes natural
Hmm.
to me and my team. But there's a lot of factors that are involved to make sure what you finally produce is viable and sells. So yeah, and how the artist, how the creative person kind of inserts themselves into that process. It's a challenge. It's a challenge, but it's also very necessary too, because I've seen programs that have been driven, completely by other departments without so much design input. And I want to leave, if we're going to bring this podcast, we're going to wind down this discussion. I'd like your listeners to understand that as an artist, as somebody who's like really creative or has a vision, or you're extremely unique. And I know this sounds kind of corny, but being in corporate life for so long, everybody's got their place, but the creative mind is really a special mind. and don't take it for granted. Don't assume that other people think like you do. The way you see the world, the way you think, the things that you do and create, that's extremely unique. And not everybody has that talent. To draw is to see, and as an artist, you see the world completely differently than everybody else. You understand how things work. You understand space and volume and shape and form. You understand line and composition and color, light and shadow. Not everybody sees that. Not everybody, to them, it's just peripheral. They just assume, oh, whatever, yeah. But nobody can not everybody can craft objects, can think of an object and then put it down on a piece of paper and illustrate it and show it and communicate it. So the talent that you have as an artist is really unique, and it should be, don't ever waste it. Don't ever take it for granted. And it's really important. It's so important in corporations. It's so important in corporations because there's I think the creative in a corporation brings the human element. Otherwise, any program, architecture, music, art, automotive design, it just spirals into numbers and cost, and it loses all its inspiration and desirability. And I really
Yeah.
think that's what artists
Yeah.
bring to the world, is this kind of inspiration and desirability and this newness.
Yeah. That answer was so inspiring and it was helpful at the same time. I just know that I have some idea about how things work. Really. I really loved our conversation because it cleared my mind to a certain extent and it just gave me a lot of different perspectives. So before ending our conversation, I would just like to ask you one thing.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, what advice would you like to give to all the listeners and budding artists and designers?
I think a good piece of tangible advice is kind of to pick up where what I was just talking about is, don't waste your talent, and
Mm-hmm.
to always draw, to always create, to always do what you love to do, and it comes from just mileage and repetition. It's not repetition of drawing the same thing, but repetition of drawing. And we were talking about figure drawing at the beginning of the show. There's times where I'm on it and it just flows, and there's times where it's really clunky and I can see it in the sketch and it doesn't work. Um, but you get really, really good at just keep doing what you love to do. If it's drawing, painting, sculpture, um, it comes from repetition and mileage and exploration. And I think the more you do it, the more you're going to kind of drift off and try different things and build upon. Don't treat everything that you do, or every drawing that you do, is so preciously. Just do it, get it out of your system, enjoy it, have the music on, be inspired, and then just do another one and another one and another one and another one, and a flow starts to generate. And it's not in one sitting, but it's, day after day, week after week, month after month. If you're a talented artist, never stop drawing. The one piece of advice I can give your listeners, and it's something that has stuck with me my entire life, and sorry if I get a little choked up when I say this, but I had a first grade teacher tell me once, because I had drawn. I went to a Catholic school, so it was it was a religious kind of illustration, and I remember this is in the first grade, and she looked at it
Yeah.
and she said, "You've
Yeah.
been given a talent." She, she didn't use those words exactly. I don't want to get religious, but she says, "You've been
Yeah.
given a talent. Don't ever waste it." So that's the advice I want to give your listeners and the other artists out there. Each one of you, you've been given a talent. Don't ever waste it.
Yeah. I'm sure that your suggestions will help a lot of artists out there because after this conversation, I am personally inspired and I am really drawn towards like doing what all I like. And thanks for joining us. So, yeah. Hope you liked our show. You can give your valuable feedback and suggestion of speakers you would like us to host next by writing us on www.arttown.store. Stay tuned to our channel as we are going to come up with brand new episodes every week on Friday. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Spotify. See you soon.